or that. You know, when we're going straight to live, you just never know what you're gonna get.
Can't help myself sometimes.
Boy. As I said in chat a couple minutes ago, I'm really honored to be able to host this last talkback of this particular show, although I hope we do many talkbacks in the future of all of our projects we've got going on. Sorry, I'm distracted by an icon. I just looked at anyways. So please type in your questions in the chat. Anything that you'd like to know from these fine folks. It's been 4 seasons, 3.5 years of the shenanigans, give or take, indeed.
Yeah. So it's been time.
It's been time. So while we're waiting for those questions, I did prepare these fine folks with a few of my own to start. And the first one is, did your inspirations for your characters or your world change along the way, along this journey of these many, many years? And what were we saying? 3-hour episodes every week. How many episodes per season?
Like 50 episodes per season.
So the first couple seasons,
some of those we had 2.
So the first couple seasons, we were going pretty much the whole year, with like a handful of weeks off over the new year. And it wasn't until season 3 when we started taking the mid-season break. And so season 3, I think, was about 45 episodes, maybe. Or was it just 40? But
I think it was like 45 across 2 shows, and then so it's like 90.
Yeah, in season 2, it's a lot. We still never added it up because it's like, which one shots do you count in? You know,
right?
Some of them were with the same characters, so the soft canon, and
some of it was looping and building stuff.
Hundreds, though.
Maybe it's good to ask, like, how is that process for you? What was it like doing something like this for so long?
Exhausting. It's been a learning process, you know, for sure. I think the main thing to come out of Mercs of Mischief is learning how to do this. Definitely, if we hadn't, you know, had this space to just sort of play and figure things out, both play in the sense of playing the game and play in the sense of like playing to learn. We, you know, how would we ever figure out how to do these things? So I think that, overall the process has been frustrating at times, surprisingly rewarding at times, you know, seeing how people connect to the material. Getting to work with so many different people, getting to meet so many different people, so many people that, like, when we started this, were just folks we watched on YouTube are now our friends. That's very cool.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy when you think about it.
So yeah, from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, like this is, it's kind of a weird scenario for me, because for me, like, the show and the world and everything, like, this world lives inside my head, right? And like when I think about it, it's like going back to, okay, how much time has passed, who would have done what thing, and that's always what I've been thinking about doing it. But as far as how my influences and my things have changed, I mean, I tell people all the time, if you go back and watch the entire show, if you pay close attention, you can kind of see, oh, what kind of shows is Sean watching when this season was on? What is Sean binging when these episodes are coming out? Because it all bleeds in inevitably to what I'm doing on the show. Like, I've given up on trying to avoid it at this point, and I've just kind of tried to regulate my intake of media. So yeah, like, it's, my influences have changed constantly over the years, but I mean, it's no surprise. I'm really into, like, shonen animes and stuff. I'm into the you know, group of friends getting together and power of friendship takes on all odds. I'm into found families. I'm into group of friends having meaningful connections, and that's always been something at the core of what I did with the Mercs of Mischief, because it's always been something that I deeply believe in, because it is something I found with this show and something that I treasure with what I found. So
As the original question was character motivation?
Inspirations, which Puck was
Inspirations.
just kind of answering right now, but yeah.
I guess my original inspiration with Kashana was just like the, just vaguely sort of I didn't have like any experience with D&D coming into this. So I just had a general idea of like, I want to make like a kind of a shyster con artist type of person. And Sean was like, oh yeah, all right, this sounds like a bard character. Cool. So I went from there. I guess originally I was kind of thinking like a rascal, a Han Solo type, sort of a little bit of Jack Sparrow motivation, pulling that shit. He inadvertently became kind of a leadership role early on, and that was not anywhere I had intended to go with the character. And then so he died for a while. But when he came back, it was was not as bound to that leadership role, and was also like we were at a new level of power. And so I think, not that it's that much different, but given also that he came back with the multiverse collision and stuff, he kind of became more like a Loki character. Which I, leaned into to a fair amount, I think people can attest to. So yeah, he went from his ambitions and worldview got less specific, but also bigger. As he saw what more there was to be, And I think that's would probably be the main inspiration change, I would say. I'm curious.
That's awesome.
What Dipper has to say about this, because that's a character who flipped around a couple times.
That's your invitation.
Yeah. I was trying to find the mouse button.
You have to talk now.
Yeah. What was it, inspiration or the evolution of characters?
Kind of both. Like, how did the inspirations evolve? Yeah.
Just through the storytelling of it, so Hellsinger was a character I was trying to turn Lilith into, but she was just too much. So I had to think along the way as the journey went, okay, playing an angry character all the time is not all that fun. I need to, see what other emotions I can pull out of her, making it a little bit more three-dimensional. I think I was making her a little two-dimensional, yada, yada, yada. And just through the journey of how other characters interacted with her, it was just a lot of reaction, honestly, because characters will be doing a lot of sweet things. So it's just I'm going to respond to that and just be that's really nice. And it was just slowly tweaking what I had with her in a way that was still natural, I think, for a character growth to be less angry, be unknowingly more protective of the people that she thought that were not her family, to now being the hugest deal ever. So it was an interesting way to build a character that had no connection with these characters, and then trying to find a reason for why would she stick around? What is the thing I need to hold this character in this game? Which I think is always a key factor to take into when making characters with a party. Um,
Especially
is
this long running of one too, right? You almost have to find new inspirations, new motivations as a character and as a player.
yeah, in a way, like I found a comfort zone with really playing off that Lilith is super naive, and I'm like, you know what? Let me take that naivety into a comedic level, but still be very serious about it. And that was enough to get everyone to react. I was like, this is working. Okay. I'm gonna hang on to that a little bit more. So it's just like it was experimenting process as I kept on playing and just like finding a way to grow Lilith naturally. So that was Lilith's character is definitely like a long-term type of character to help grow. So she was kind of the perfect character for this game scenario. Like for a one shot, she wouldn't work. She just wouldn't work. But yeah, just finding a reason to give Lilith, like, I think my inspiration was just focusing on what is Lilith gonna love, because she didn't have that. It was just a lot of hate and then overcoming that hate with love. So it's definitely trying to figure out like what is the thing my character needs to overcome in this game. And that's kind of what I concluded. It started to become more of a self thing that she needs to change rather than, oh, all my problems will go away if I, murder my family or something like that. That was not the focus anymore. It was a lot of self-focus on like how to grow her as a character. And overall just like having fun interacting with everybody, and like it was just I really just enjoyed how like the power of kindness has changed my character in the long run. I really, really enjoyed that. And making everyone laugh is just something I enjoyed doing in the long run. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of Lilith. And then I got an opportunity to experiment this other side of Lilith that kind of felt like I was going into before, and then I kind of put her in the back burner, and then I had an opportunity to play Hellsinger, and then just kind of see how those two worlds would be. And overall, I'm happy where my character ended up. Just, I think like always finding like that nice, happily ever after kind of scenario that we all just watch movies for and be like, oh, that's so nice. I don't know. Did I answer the question? Or
Yeah.
Did I just go off? Okay.
No, it was great. Like what I really. Oh, go ahead, John.
See, I think you brought up some good points there, like specifically that a lot of the characters in this story have been about figuring out why they're here. Which is, I would advise against that, because that's so nebulous. It takes so long. But with the way this show has gone, with it just being sort of an open-ended thing and new characters coming in, a lot of these characters were just made independently of the world and the setting, and then we got to figure out, where they are, why are they here, why are they with these people, and that has, I think, in most cases, required us to make changes to who we thought our character was on the fly as it comes up in the moment. But like even from the beginning, I said, as Sean, you might remember this, I think I said like in our very first session, my intention with Kashano is for him he's going to reflect the people he's surrounded with. Like, mm-hmm. I'm intentionally going to let that change it. The way everybody in his party reacted to him at a certain point started to be looking to him for leadership, and so he became a leader. But, like all along, figuring out who he was ended up being a lot easier than I thought, because when it comes down to it, who he is an anti-hero. He doesn't save the world because it's the right thing to do. He might say that, he might act like that, but I think it was fairly obvious that when he saved the world, it was because he was personally mad at the person threatening the world. Like, it's always personal for him. The one character that was purpose-built into the plot and accidentally ended up being there for a long time. What's that like, Norbog?
It's rough. It's rough coming in with no goals and no background, or a background that's heavily reliant on other characters and their growth. Because, yeah, my inspiration for Norbog did not change through the entire series, but her goals had to. Her inspiration was, like, at the core, it's like, I love bugbears as a race. And I was like, I want to be a good bugbear. So that is at the root. And then kind of branching from that, she's inspired by some Disney princesses, a couple of Shakespearean heroines, and like a particular type of medieval heroine who is like a virtuous woman who's been turned into a monster through no fault of her own, and remains virtuous no matter what, even when she's monstrous. And that is consistently Norbog. But what had to change was, like, she started as kind of like naive and sheltered and very nice and kind, but hadn't gotten out too much. So it became like, all right, what does Rapunzel look like when she's out of her tower? What happens when Miranda is off of Prospero's island? It becomes the continuation of what happens to these sweet, naive heroines when they are less naive and possibly less sweet. So yeah, I think she still absolutely has that sweet, innocent heroine at her root, but it's was finding a lot more agency in a story that she originally had no agency in because she wasn't designed to have agency in, and kind of trying to just figure that footing out along the way. And I think I did. I think I'm happy with where she ended up. And I think it's actually good that she's not with some of the core group of people, that she's with a character, Angelo, who she doesn't have a super close relationship with yet, and that she's kind of walked away from the other three who she's been very reliant on.
Such beautiful answers. I can't express how moved I am by the professionalism of this company right now. The growth of you all as players is really evident in your answers. The amount of thought that you put into your characters each and every session, the long-term growth that your characters went through is a testament to your abilities as actors and narrators of story, and I think you should be really proud of yourselves for everything that you've said so far. I see that Sky Penn has joined us. He was here listening, but now we're on camera as well. So I'm assuming you heard the question. Would you like me to repeat it anyway? No, you're good? Okay, you're up if you like.
Oh, perfect timing, by the way. I did call that. Hi, everybody. It's me.
We stalled long enough for you to get back.
So, Ken, remember how I said I didn't want you to repeat the question?
Yeah.
The question, let me ask you, the question was, how has your character changed since the beginning, right? That was the question?
Inspirations
gotcha.
of your character,
Sorry.
yeah.
I mean, Penn started out as I like in any kind of media that I've absorbed, I have always been drawn to the concepts of the characters who were doing something wrong, but doing it right, or like that kind of like, not anti-hero, but someone who essentially is using something like necromancy or like just something inherently evil, but they end up being one of the good guys. I have always loved that trope and loved that arc, and I was like, how do you bring this into D&D? And one of the few things I found that seemed like to ring out the most true was it was like necromancy is kind of inherently evil. And I don't know why, but it is an interesting thing. And so I ran with that. I was like, plus it's skeletons. I love skeletons. So like that was my jam. And it's actually weird because that's kind of been something that I've found out by playing this character. And I realized how much I loved it, and that has carried through. And now it is something that I truly like find that I appreciate in other media and other whatever. So his inspiration, though, yeah, it's kind of stayed the same as time has gone on, though. I mean, he started out in a thrust upon leadership role, which was never intended for him. That was never something I wanted for that character. And it was very interesting because it kind of became a very like, well, let's all vote on it. It was like, I'm not making a decision. We're making a decision together. And then he got shifted and thrown into another team. And by the end of it, yeah, he kind of shifted into like, I'm gonna do this stuff, and if I am gonna do this stuff, I should not be around the academy. I think Lilith rubbed off a lot. I think there was a lot of like mixture of people rubbing off on each other, because I definitely ended up worse but also better than I started with this character. He used to be very like, let's not kill anybody, let's talk about it, everybody deserves a second chance, and by this last time there was a lot of murder. But that's also kind of like, that is a struggle that I would say anyone who plays a what is the word, kind of a pacifist character, you're gonna deal with that in D&D, because the longer the campaign is, the harder it is for you to always be the one being like, no, don't fight the thing, even though your character is built completely around combat. No, don't. It's like, if that's not what your whole table's going for, then it kind of throws a wrench in things. You kind of have to work around it. So yeah, kind of got murdery towards the end. The only thing I regret, I don't really regret anything. Like, I think Penn probably maybe has second thoughts about the fact that he stabbed Cyric, but he also, or shadows Cyric, but like, it also kind of needed to be done. So like, he doesn't have too many qualms. But yeah, so that's where he came from and ended up.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for the answer. Go for it. Yeah.
Fireball.
We did have a real nice fireball arc.
Penn has been like the buddy duo for like several players throughout the series.
I love it. I do my best to work with another player always.
It's true. And then also like the flexibility of like independence and the troubled soul and relationship building, but also that sort of isolation. And then in the end, like that idea of being alone but not really alone. Like I really love that trajectory arc of Penn. And on that idea of trajectory arcs, like I think everyone touched a little bit on the theme of love and hate and like light and dark. And I think, Puck, you set that up really nicely for us, is we each had those flip sides of our characters, also like built in when we had doubles, but for our characters as well, we did, the lighter characters often influenced the darker characters, and the darker characters influenced the lighter characters. And I think Melissa said it beautifully, where we just kind of like wholeheartedly well-rounded, three-dimensioned each of our characters throughout. And Angelo has a similar story to Norbog, as many of you know, coming in with this, like, it was supposed to be a one-shot thing, and then it was a long-shot thing. And I experienced that love and hate thing too, and I was reflecting on it since Sunday, of just like, originally, Penn was holding the box of love, and then there was this really cute moment of a private message of like, I don't want this box anymore, will you take it? I have another plan. And yeah, for sure. And having Angelo receive that box was like, yeah, well, who else would hold an entire box of love? That's basically who this character is, and it just makes sense. And then that creative moment that I had of, I'm going to try and use this new lightning lure that I got, which I only took as a spell last minute because I found out I was leveling up, and I looked at my other alternate Angelo character sheet, and that was a spell he had, and I was like, oh yeah, lassoing is something that alternate Angelo loved, and now that they're merging again, like, let's do it. And it just all worked out to throw. But then when I rolled poorly. It was like, well, how is he going to get into the box? And then Norbog, it was just like, now again, the power of friendship, pushing him right into the box. Yeah, it works. And it only works because we're a strong team of improvisers who say yes to each other. And if that was any piece of advice that I would have for anybody playing around a table, is just be creative and say yes. And thank you for making that an inviting environment for us, Puck. I'm going to wrap up this question unless anybody else has anything burning to say on it.
I just, on the tendency, as Sky mentioned, like the tendency to care a little bit less about protecting the innocents. I think that's something that happens in this game, because combat is like a pillar of the game. But I also think it's something it's kind of an interesting sub-narrative that just exists in the game of D&D that's very hard to get away from, the idea of power creep and the shift in perspective when you become more powerful. where you might start off as like, well, let's make sure we're going after people who deserve it. And when you get to a point where you're approaching godhood, we ended at level 14. The power you have at that point is the power to have significant effect on the world. And so you start looking at things broader picture. So like season 1 Kashano would never be like, hey, Azko is a viable ally. Season 4 Kashano is like, unfortunately, this makes sense.
Or even on that same note, the moment Kashano was like, I'm just not going to have any magic. Pew, 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 pew. Now I'm going to go attack as a melee. And I was like, how is this happening? I mean, the higher level you go, the more confidence you get too. And like the support that's backed up from your party too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. The next question that I have ties in really nicely with Colors Echo's question, and I'm so sorry if I say this wrong, Lumberluke's question as well. Echo said we went over what Kashano did at the end. What about the others? And obviously, if you want to build on that as well, you're more than welcome to, Madmaker. And then how do you feel about Pen becoming Demi-Lich? I guess that could be a question for everybody's feelings about Pen, but I think that's a good question for Sky. My question was about the satisfaction of your ending of this series, of the season, of your character, of the arc. How satisfied are you? Is there anything you would have done differently as far as the ending is concerned? And of course, Puck, you can speak to that as well. It's your story. And anybody who wants to go first is more than welcome to feel inspired.
Go ahead.
Well, just to kind of address the sub question that was in the chat there. The other Kashano, Corp Kashano, he's staying at the Academy with Gilbetta for the time being. Yeah, that's the short answer to that part of that. As far as am I happy with where he ended up? I think ultimately where it came down to in that last episode is he's not done. I don't think we're done with this character. He's going to come back in something eventually. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a Spelljammer game together. But yeah, if I was going to completely write out the story end from end, I probably would have had him kill Cyric and take his place. But it's more interesting when that's what makes collaborative storytelling more interesting. Is you think you're going in one direction, you end up somewhere completely different. So he's still conflicted about the world. He's still disheartened about things, but the world is so much bigger now. There's a universe to explore now. And
That's so interesting, because one of the things that I remember him saying is like, this isn't my problem. It's not my problem. And like, I'm done. And now to hear you be like, he's not done. There's so much more that he wants to do. That's really cool.
He's done saving people, but he's not done exploring.
I think Norbog is in a very similar position too. That connects very nicely. I don't think this was very much not an end to Norbog's story. She almost didn't have an end or goals. Like, she didn't complete really an arc. This is the start of her arc, and it involves leaving this party and doing something by herself or making a new party. And yeah, I think whenever the Bugbear Ancestral Homeland became a thing that was in play, like, I knew she was always going to leave and go north. It was just a question of who was going to come with her, because I think at varying times during the story, there was varying people could have come with her. I think Pen could have come with her. I think Kashano could have come with her. I think Angelo could have come with her. So it was just kind of like, okay, who's going to shake out to want to fuck off and head north too? So yeah, I think I'm satisfied with where she ended, because she didn't end. This is her start.
That's really awesome. Now I just my brain just went into this direction of, so Norbog's done saving people for right now, but will eventually probably get bored of whatever and head off on another adventure. Meanwhile, bubbling in Kashano land, he's becoming a villain. And
Perfect.
It's such a strong word.
Pirates.
Look, if there's another one and you become a villain, let me bring out Hellsinger. It's the best.
Kashano has always been the villain in somebody's story.
Having all the characters.
Right?
No,
For sure.
no. Norbog has never been anyone's villain. Norbog has done nothing wrong in her entire life ever.
Norbog was Angelo's villain many times. he couldn't stop being like, I am stupid, but why'd she call me stupid?
I did stupid. When did I call him stupid?
I mean, it was, again, all perspective. This poor sensitive soul. He's got the thickest skin as a half-orc, but he's still a bard. Like, that's the reality of his situation.
Jesus Christ. This party is so... Dealing with 4 charisma casters is hell. No one should ever do it, and like this is why Norbog needed to leave, because just little drama queen princesses all around here in this group.
But she still agreed to take him with her.
Yup. Look, I'm
She
getting
tried
rid
to
of a
give
bunch
her
of
an
the other
out.
bards. I can't get rid of all of them.
If you're
There's too many.
If you're going to be exploring around, you might come into contact with relics. Occasionally, there's something that can only be handled by someone pure of heart, so you got to keep one of those on the crew.
Yeah. And I feel like Norbog started Pure of Heart, and this group was a fucking terrible influence on her. I think all of them, Jabetta, Kashano, Penn, and Lilith have been terrible influences on her. I think I could pinpoint traits that she picked up from each of them that are bad, and like I think Norbog lost her Pure of Heart status just from hanging out with all of them.
I think it's this party. I don't think it's us individually. I think getting here makes sure it's like Magic the Gathering. It's when you get here, you become a worse person. I guess I'll lead into that then. Hi, I'm one of those princesses. I am the charisma casting warlock. Was I happy with it? Hell yeah. I think I got everything I ever wanted. Like, truly, the end goal for Penn was to be a lich, but I didn't want it to come at a price. Like, I didn't want to have to go kill like 100 babies or something like that, some horrible, evil thing. So I was looking for an out. It was interesting because they just released the Eldritch Lich, which is something that Sean and I had discussed. Because it, like, if you go read that block of text, it's like, ooh, that's perfect. But I actually like where this ended up too, because I don't know, it narratively was very interesting, and that box itself came from a little like one shot of Penn and Gilbetta, and she bought it for him, and he carried that thing around forever, being like, "What is this? Somebody open it!" And then it ended up being this. So like, it's always cool when something like that happens. But yeah, he's happy. I'm happy. Mixed emotions about putting Handy on. I'd like to think like his presence is still around, but also I'm like, it was still cool and I always wanted to do it. So, but as far as the after story, I mean, that's the fun part about the Lich thing is like, you got all the time in the world. I don't know what he's going to do. He might stay around the academy for a while and then he might get bored. Like, there are endless possibilities for how his story ends based on what happens around him. And I think that's the thing about Penn is, like, he's always kind of been a reflection of, like, the environment he's in to a degree. Like, there are some things that hold true, but, like, he will flex or stretch in different directions based on, like, what's going on. So, I don't know, but it's exciting, and who knows? So, I think that's all the answers to the question.
Got it.
All right.
Puck?
Anybody,
Melissa?
Melissa, anything?
Repeat the question again.
Are you satisfied with the ending?
Oh,
Specifically for your character.
yeah. I didn't know what her ending would be. I had zero clue what her ending would be.
Thought-provoking. No.
Did she get everything she wanted? Because I remember
Lilith, she's greedy. Never. I still need to go get my dress. I still need to go take my lessons with.
You got 2
Lady-
dresses, and you gave one away.
Yeah.
You explicitly introduced the concept of a magical gem that could make a magical dress.
Where I can manipulate people
of course
like
she
hell.
still wants it. We may have to one-shot that eventually. I don't know.
Yeah,
Oh,
Lilith is
God.
greedy, okay? That's what makes her, like, easy to drive and for Sean to manipulate. As if anyone watches certain episodes, you see what happens.
Like,
what's
Just
that like,
because she's so
Sean?
chaotic, it just changes too, right? Like
Yeah.
you've got a goal, you achieve the goal, you've got a goal, you side quest onto a different goal, you come back to the original goal. Like that's how I've kind of understood Lilith.
Yeah.
I absolutely I love her dumb flaws.
She jumps around a bit, but yeah, like I mean, I've always had two characters that I knew I could steer in any direction I wanted, no matter what, if necessary.
What's that like, man? What's it like knowing if you spread some bones along the side of the road, you can just make me go anywhere?
Look, there's always this slight, like at the back of my mind, like he's not gonna fall for this.
That's more insulting.
There's no way. It's like the bone room in Strounce Castle. I was just like, nah.
Who traps bones? Who puts a trap in a bone?
Necromancers! Undead lords!
Well, now that you say it.
Still love that you just wanted to rest and you slept on a mimic bed.
Yeah, I've gotten so
bad.
fucked up in this series by traps. I think I am the one that has gotten the most fucked by traps and poison and bullshit.
Like,
That
and
poison
that's not
dungeon
even a
in
lot of
Lilith?
that's accidental. Like,
Lilith's
Poison
dungeon with the poison that you just kept.
The poison hell dungeon sucked, and I hated it. Also, if anyone taunts me or makes fun of me for being a warlock, I'm automatically like, I'm gonna fight you, and then I'm gonna die.
I will die trying to kill you to prove your point wrong. But as far as satisfactory ends, I mean, we had to end it somewhere. We had to end it sometime. Like, and that's kind of the thing about driving this whole thing. For me, with this world and what we were building here, I try really hard never to do the same thing twice. I try really hard to always make sure that whatever we were doing, it was something new, it was something interesting, it was something with new possibilities for the characters. And I think the way we end it is fine because it opens up those new possibilities for everybody. I think everybody had gone as far as they could go together. And it was time for them to figure out who they were on their own. So, yeah. I mean, again, like I said, the world lives on in my head. Like, this, for me, it's still, stuff's still happening up here.
What am I doing?
Sounds like a fan fiction.
You're being a lich.
The team, the Mercs of Mischief team, was never functional. It was never a functional team. And I think that was part of the charm.
Yeah.
Oh, we were toxic as hell, and I loved it.
Through it somehow, type of thing, because you have to.
It was a dysfunctional family.
The whole world goes to shit. You've got to.
I think we did great.
Real.
You were a dysfunctional family, and eventually everybody had to leave home. And you still get together for reunions every now and then.
Get drunk at Thanksgiving together,
Yeah, but part of coming together as a family is eventually departing and finding out who you are as an individual. So,
Did any part of your story not get told?
I mean, look, we could talk about the island of lost plot points all we want, but there's a lot of stuff that... Here's the thing about doing a show like this. You make do with what you've got available, right? And at the end of the day, I often make decisions about plot points or things that we would look into based on what you guys were interested in as characters. If it was something that you guys had no interest in pursuing, I tried to avoid progressing those plot points. I just kind of tucked them off to the side and let them do their own thing. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that never got resolved, but I'm probably not going to talk about it because I might repurpose it for future campaigns.
That was going to be another question. I don't know, maybe I'll just segue into that one. Do you foresee yourselves playing these characters elsewhere, bringing them back? Puck for another campaign, would it be the same world and setting, but just like in a different area, or like what are our thoughts there?
I mean, I don't know. If you were ever going to do stuff like this again, it'd probably be more in the form of like shorts or one-shots or side stories telling more of the stories of the characters that separated off and did their thing. If we ever wanted to go back to the Avalon Knights Academy, I think it would probably be another story altogether. For me, the Avalon Knights Academy has already been 3 stories. You guys have just seen one of them, and I'm sorry there's no way to see the other 2. So I can just talk about them, and that's about it. But you know, as
You
far
could
as,
throw new characters into those other storylines as alternate realities. You've got enough information.
Alternate realities, new students, new staff, time progresses, things flip over, things change. That's the way life works. That's the way worlds work. In terms of, you know, how things would look if we ever came back to this, it would all be different. I mean, the people would be different, the characters would be different, the world would be different. When I thought about this world, I thought about it in such a way as this is a world that happens after all the adventures of the modules have already taken place, and there have been successes and there have been failures, and things have changed as a result of that. And you know, this would be even further after that, and the impact of these characters have altered the world in certain ways, in some very profound ways, that would still be felt years later. You know, maybe Norbog would have a massive bugbear grove out there somewhere.
I intend to become an admiral. I just need 3 more ships, and then I can do it. So
you're on your way. You're well on your way. And like, again, all of this would change and all of this would alter. I can't say I'd never go back to this world. Hey, if there's enough people that demand it, you know, we do a show, and if there's a large enough audience, we make a thing for the audience.
Yeah.
But for me, like, and I guess this leads into the world building question a little bit, I guess, also. But like, this world is like, I went to the grocery store, and I picked up that pack that has like the pizza crust and the sauce in it, and I used the crust and the sauce of the Forgotten Realms, and then I put all my own toppings on top of it, and that was this world. And for my next game, I'm making the dough, I'm making the sauce, I'm making everything from scratch, so I've got a bit more to play with, and it's going to be a different experience. It already has been a different experience, start to finish. So, you know, I might like that more. We'll see what happens when we get into it. But yeah, maybe. I don't know. Long story short, maybe. Depends on what happens in the future. But there's probably still stories to tell here.
Great answer. Anybody else plans to use these characters again, or are they to bed, or what are you thinking?
if you ask me to come back and play Norbog, I will always say yes and come back and play Norbog because I'm pragmatic and I can. And like, yeah, I can easily see Norbog and Angelo having a mini campaign. Give them a new crew with like monster-y characters, and you got like a little monster expedition. Easy.
Sounds fun. I've got ideas.
There you go. I mean, look, you know where I am. You know I just said I'll always play Norbog, so you know, doable.
That's interesting. I didn't really answer the question about if I was satisfied with the ending.
Yeah,
I think I was satisfied as far as Angela says, but he's kind of like Lilith in that he'll never be satisfied. I don't think, like, when people are like, I'm done, he's like, what? Like, that was like a mind-blowing thing for him. But like Norbog, it was still pretty, like, they hadn't had that experience that a lot of them had, right? So that would be interesting, a little mini series. Norbog and Angelo adventures. Oh boy, I could see it. I'll make a little tune. Other characters, other thoughts?
I mean, yeah, I came out of this show with several characters, and I love them all, and I'd be happy to do things with them in the future. You know, at some point, I'm probably going to run a game, and it may very well be a situation where my characters are central NPCs in that. It really just depends on how things go. So, yeah, I'm toying with stuff, but obviously, like, If there's ever, to Sean's point, if there's something you guys want to see, we gotta get support for it. We can't. It doesn't make sense to make an entire show with everything we put into a production for a couple dozen people. So we're trying to reach more audience. If there's something though that you think you guys can get a lot of excitement for, we'll make it. That's kind of what it comes down to. So if the audience absolutely needs to see a Norbog and Angelo adventure, find the interest, find the take all of the best episodes, make your own highlight clips and send them to your friends and get them excited about it. Like if one of our audience members made a Norbog and Angelo highlight reel, clipping out parts of our episodes and put that on YouTube, and that got a shit ton of views, then we're probably going to make a Norbog and Angelo show. That's when it comes down to it. What we are trying to do here is get a company, an honest to God, sustainable company in operation. And so if we have a product that people are interested in, we're going to make that product, and we're going to make it as good as we possibly can.
You ever heard of back by popular demand? Well, we're looking for that.
To answer the question, duh. Like, of course I'll always come back and play Penn. Penn is my favorite character I've ever played in D&D, and I could honestly keep playing that same character. I love playing Warlocks. Like, any slight variation on that same character I still enjoy. And if you think I won't come back to play a Lich, have you even been watching? Do you even know me? Of course. I can't wait for Sean to have to stat that out. I'm sure he's going to love it.
Don't you know who he is?
I was really hoping you would do that.
I'm proud of that moment. It's stuck for years.
One of
Your
our
mic's
best
also on.
running gags. Oh, sure. You say you like it now until you got to spend 3 weeks in a flak jury.
I mean, yeah, that would kind of suck, but whatever.
Although, look, a couple episodes with Penn as a voice in a jar might actually be really fun.
I have always wanted to play as like someone's familiar or just a voice or a weapon. By the way, if anybody has a show out there, even on this channel or another one, where they just need an NPC or like a villain or like someone who's not really there but definitely there and talking, I'm on it. I'm about it. I'll do it. So just throwing that out there.
Bunch of people with notebooks.
Oh, boy.
Dipper,
What's up?
would you play these characters again?
Would I play Lilith again? Only end version of Lilith. I'm never going to start with the beginning version of Lilith. No. Nope. Just end version of Lilith. End version of Lilith is what you're going to get.
Only the final form.
Pretty much. She was just too prickly in the beginning. I needed to take out that prickle. That was a journey.
Fair enough. Yeah, Angelo's part of my soul, so he's in many characters, and he will be present again. You'll probably see a little bit of him in certain ways in future characters on this channel, I'm sure. Moving on.
I have a question related to that one, if I may.
Yeah, please.
My dear Dungeon Master, have we earned a spot in your future games, the ones that we aren't in? I know you have a tendency to use NPCs that have been players in your games. Have we earned that honorific?
Oh, man. Gee. Look.
I'm going to say you can't use Kashano in future games unless you learn to do the voice.
You can't use Lilith unless you really get the attitude, because I've already seen how you play.
You can use me, and I would love it.
I don't know. Clone Shano without the accent was just like felt hot.
Yeah, all right.
Take my sisters.
There's some of these people I feel confident in portraying. I think I did a great Lilith. I think Leon, when I was doing Liana as Lilith, I did an incredible job. So don't even at me.
Also, dungeon masters need way more credit than they get. Like, that is hard. It's not only is it hard to do multiple characters, multiple voices, but to play another player's character when you're already doing everything
When
else.
they're
Narrating
sitting
well,
there
like,
looking at you.
Right? I can't even go there in my brain. That's like one of the most terrifying. Even as Angelo being different characters, that was tough because I was like, what is the player thinking of my portrait? Like, it's tough for sure. I'm going to power through some audience questions because we are getting pretty close to the end here. Before I do start to wrap up though, does anybody need to leave right at 8 or whatever time you're at in 8 minutes? Does anybody need to leave right away? Okay, cool. So this one comes from kgrams88. If Becky or Darius would have won over Rolda, would Kashano have come back from the dead, or was that always in the shadows as the plan?
DM,
No, go ahead.
How much of a peek behind the curtain do you want to give here?
Well, look, I mean, the show's over. We could probably talk about it.
All right. I mean, yeah, no, this is useful for anyone who's doing a show too. So you may have noticed Puck doesn't like to kill PCs. I think partially just because, he doesn't like to. Partially with it being a show, the audience gets attached to characters. And so in that first season, it got to, especially as we started doing the second show, and as the real world responsibilities of the channel started to pile up, it got to be stressful to have to think in game in a leadership role while also doing so outside of the game and running technical stuff. And yeah, it just kind of became a stressful point. And that wasn't really where I wanted had initially wanted the character to be anyways. I was like that's where he went. That's where the story went. I'm not upset about it. But it did get to a point where it was like, I need a break from this character at very least. I came to Puck. I was like, I want to kill Kashano. Can we let him die? Like, stop refusing to let me kamikaze this guy. And he was like, well, he works really good in the story.
Yeah,
and the audience likes him. And all
he works good in the story. The audience likes him. If he's gonna die, I want it to mean something.
And so we're like, okay. So it's like, okay, how about a break at least? And so we kind of between us came to okay, let's do it, but let's make it mean something, and let's also let it appear as if he's never coming back. And that also leaves the option to never bring him back. We didn't want it to be a anime rules, you didn't see the body, so he's definitely coming back sort of thing. It was like, no, he's turned to dust. He's not here anymore. As far as we know. No, he was actually in the ring. But yeah, so the plan was to bring him back. And I think we still would have brought him back if one of the other characters would have won. And honestly, I don't know, Sean, you can tell me if I'm wrong about this. I think if one of the other characters had won, he would have come back sooner. I thought I was going to be playing Rolda for a couple months. This is why I was like, okay, cool, let's make it a fun interactive thing. Let's let the audience choose which character it was. Rolda was there as a placeholder because that first episode back is when we had Dingo, and we didn't want to draw too much focus away from Dingo by having to introduce a new character so much. So we're like, okay, we pulled it out of one-shots. Rolda first appeared in Geese Thieving Bastards, which was one of the first one-shots we did. And so it was like, okay, let me just pull her out. We got her ready to go. She's fun. She doesn't affect stuff too much, or at least she's not supposed to. Yeah, we saw how that turned out. Everybody loved her so much, though, that she ended up staying around a lot longer than planned.
Yeah.
So yeah, would Shadow come back? Yes, probably a lot sooner.
People loved Rolda, and Rolda worked so well with like the group and everything. Like it ended up being just this beautiful, like there's beautiful connection. And like near the ends, I would get messages from John being like, "So when's Kashana come back?"
At a certain point, it's like, okay, I've had my break. I want to get back into like being somebody who's assertive, who can kind of steer things a little bit more.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, bro. There was a small amount of amusement of watching you struggle under.
I saw those moments,
the
and I'm like,
the lack of leadership that Rolda had, while everybody else was doing something that you're like, this is a bad choice.
So bad, but I can't. It would be so out of character to point that out right now. So I guess I'm not gonna say anything.
The closest you got to having some kind of like wheel, a hand on the wheel, was like, may I make a suggestion?
Right?
Yeah, Rolda lasted as long as she did because people loved him, and it was one of those cases where, John, you played the character too well, and that was part of.
Look, if you ever want to be a favorite, you play a cinnamon roll character. That's
Yes.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
It's also just like a great cop out for if there are bad decisions. You're like, I'm that decision.
I don't know. I'm just a guy.
I'm just
doing my thing.
I'm just a kobold in a wig.
This is a good time to point out that Geese Thieving Bastards to this day is still one of my funniest videos on this channel to watch. If you want to see Sean play for once, because that rarely happens.
It rarely occurs. It is during the equinox.
he and Rolda together do such good work in that one shot, and it is hilarious.
That was a good team.
I'm gonna go watch it again tonight.
Drop a link in the chat, Sky.
I'll have to go. Yeah, I'll go grab it. I think does Rolda eat like a roach, like the butt of a marijuana cigarette or whatever they're called?
Oh God, I forgot about fucking.
You have like a sensor
We
full
kept
of
that
like
canonical too. She had her like incense sensor, her clerical sensor, filled with, because she was told that like this is just like special incense. So she's like, she collected up all these roaches out of the alley where these guys were smoking weed all the time and filled it up. And so we canonically had that when she came into Mercs of Mischief, and I think she actually lit it at one point.
I love it. It's great. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Moving on to a YouTube question. Slumber. To Puck, what was the most daunting part of building your worlds?
World building for this show is actually kind of easy. And I'm going to say that out for. If you're going to do world building, an excellent place to start is to pick something existing and alter it in a way. I actually had a question like this in one of the other Discords I was a part of. Somebody was asking about how to get started with world building. And I said a great way to get started with world building is to start with a like but statement. And so like this is like the Forgotten Realms, but 30 years after the adventures of the modules. That gives you a nice firm base to get everything started, and from there the world building for me was just very much dealing with ripples. When an event happens, how does it affect everything else? In the latest world building I'm doing, I think the most daunting thing is creating the connected pieces. So like if you establish a town, it's like, okay, cool, I've established this town, and then I need to create information for the person who runs that town. And if the person who runs that town runs an organization, you need to create that organization and figure out what that organization's about. Like, there's all this connective tissue to everything you create, and the most daunting thing is remembering what those connected things are and keeping track of them.
I think it's important though, if somebody out there, if you're going into your first time doing any sort of world building, remember that you don't need everything filled out. You only need as much as is going to come up in the story. And if something comes up in the story that you haven't built yet, that's what improvisation is for.
Just a lot of that happened on the show.
Yeah, write it down, and then after the session, figure out the details. But just make sure, like, whatever you said, that is now canon. We've always had kind of a rule on this show. Actually, it's been an expressly stated rule. Nothing's canon until it's on the show.
Yeah.
And so even when we started tying in multiverse, we started, we're like, oh yeah, you know what? Ravnica exists. The Phyrexians exist. All this other like wizards lore that started to come in. It doesn't necessarily mean that every single piece of lore in every single text is canon here. Only the stuff we've said is canon is canon. Everything else is open to interpretation. That still leaves some mystery. You don't know exactly how things are. You can't go Google what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
The next question from YouTube as well, since that one was to Puck, the next one is to any of us. Do any of us plan on running campaigns in the future? I know John had mentioned. Do you want to start?
I only with the probably yes. I'm not going to get more detail now.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Anybody else want the big chair?
I'll take this time to plug that in a couple weeks I'll be doing a table flip, which is like super nerve-wracking for me. I've been running a small campaign with my junior high kids for a few weeks, but mostly it was my student teacher running it and me just like supervising. And then when it came for my time to do it, I choked. So it's going to be entertaining, to say the least, for everyone but me. And I like started typing out like the first thing that I say, and it's like the first thing I'm going to say is I'm making all of this shit up. So like it's similar rules to Forgotten Realms. It's still set 5e-ish, but like who knows? And I'm just going to expect my experienced dungeon masters who are players to just go with it, and I'm so scared. But no, I don't think I could do a whole campaign, although we'll see how the table flip goes.
Who's gonna be in that show, Xavier?
Should I say?
Yeah,
Is that something I can say?
Start hyping it. I mean, if you've got everything finalized and committed, yeah, or whoever you have.
I do.
It's up
I
to
do.
you.
I have.
Give as little or as much information as you want. It's your show.
Okay, that's fair. There are two who haven't been seen a lot online, so I won't plug them because I haven't talked to them if they're okay with me plugging them early or whatever. But Puck's going to be in it and playing, which is really exciting. And former Guy, Kevin from Dirty 20 will be in it as well. So yeah, very excited to have him back on the channel.
Thieving bastards too.
Yeah, no. I'm gonna have to go watch the one shot for the second shot. No, I really considered doing some pre-made campaign stuff, and everything that I looked at, I got overwhelmed because I had to try and remember what NPCs are what and how they would speak, and like I was like, I'm a writer and I'm a thespian. Like I can do this for one. I'm also a teacher. I do lessons that are 45 minutes to 90 minutes long. Like I can do this. So I wrote a thing. And yeah, you'll get to see it on July 16th, around the time that this show started. An hour earlier, I think. But yeah.
And hopefully several months
Oh.
from now, I'm doing a table flip. We don't have dates, but I am locked in for sometime this fall. And yeah, I'm excited. I would love to do more DMing stuff. It's something that I've wanted to dip my toes into, but it's hard to like do it, find the time, find the people. So this seems like a good outlet, and I have some plans already. I'm positive Sean will be in it. I'm positive I have 2 seats filled already.
It's always a question mark for me whether you guys will let me have a seat in your guys'
Yeah, you would absolutely have my seat at my table flip.
Why is that a question ever? Has anyone ever denied you or like not had you?
But yeah, if it goes well, I would love to do more stuff. It's just getting up to streaming level is debatable at the moment because it's all untested.
I want to just put on the record. One, I loved everybody that was in my table flip. I want to put that on the record. However, I really wanted Sean and Kevin in there, and both of them were wildly unavailable at that specific time when it was planned. Like, it was just the worst luck because those were the 2 Dungeons Masters. I was like, I want them really badly. They were just unavailable.
Sounds like it's time for you to try another table flip.
I know. I would. I do really, to answer the question, I do want to do more DMing. I don't know that it would be for shows, though, if I'm being honest, because like a lot of my friends that I do shows with and other stuff with, we do a lot of this stuff. And interestingly enough, it doesn't, doing it for shows doesn't detract from it like fully. It is a different experience. But it is not the same as showing up and just playing D&D without thinking about anything. We do a lot of thinking about things when we're playing D&D for a show, like a lot. And it's just not the same at the same level. So like I've considered doing it more casually or off stream, or like recording it casually and just like clipping out really good bits that are funny. But yeah, I definitely want to do more. It'll depend on when I'm needed and what's going on. So
I'd be in a casual game with you any day.
I like to play D&D. I'm running it all the time.
I have to be drunk if I want to DM again online.
You had like one of the best table flips ever.
It was so much
It
fun.
was so good.
And no one will ever see it.
Yeah, let's not hype it too much. We were just talking about how we lost the recording.
I hope you guys enjoyed Town of Bob's. All of you that were there. That was a special one-time premiere.
I got to play a warlock who had a son. It's great.
My name was Sisyphus. It was the best.
My God, you were. How could I forget? Oh, I want to play that game again. We played it again.
Here's what I love about the table flips is I could just make a character that's just like a joke and then just not worry about it.
Right, if I can just get my VTuber Lil, then maybe. It definitely made things a lot easier. You guys can't see my face of panic.
In the interest of time and honoring everybody's time, I know we're over. I'm going to read a couple of the questions that didn't get answered in chat. And I'm going to ask that anyone that it applies to, if you could just answer it in the questions section, I'll copy paste them in on Discord. And if somebody could throw Discord into the chat right now. The first one is Ral Grimrick. Concerning Patreon games, now that the show is over, would any of you be willing to play in those games more often? Then Colors Echo, have you ever thought about doing another short series of an alternate world, like A Weekend in Pavalia? Personally, I adored seeing the characters in a new setting. And then this one is actually not a question. It's a beautiful statement that I copy pasted because I think it's just so sweet. It's from YouTube. Thank you so much, Sabby. Said, I wanted to thank you all. You got me into D&D. I've decided I wanted to DM thanks to Puck. And I've been writing, brainstorming, and building a world to play with my siblings and their friends, which is just like the sweetest. So Thank you. Thanks for that comment.
We do want to address the Patreon thing. So,
okay.
Yeah, actually,
guys, it's good.
Let's take 5 minutes on the way out to tell you what's happening with the channel going forward. Yeah.
All right. So, we're going to be restructuring the Patreon again, guys. It's my Patreon cruise. I've booked July games with you guys. Those are going to be our last ones. Unfortunately, we are going to have to retire that portion of it. It's getting.
However,
the
reason for that is, look, another peek behind the curtain. From the beginning, Sean was supposed to be taking a cut of that Patreon money that goes to the games that he's DMing, and he has refused to do so. He's funneled all that money into the channel. And I've fought with him about this for 3.5 years. Finally, we're stopping those games, but he's doing games over on startplaying.com. So if you want to play at Puck's table, go check out startplaying.com. Find his page there.
And I will be opening up some more games on that over there because I currently have only the one, but it is a move that is just kind of something that we're going to have to do because it's getting harder and harder to like consistently find the time to do it. And if I'm doing the games on my own, there's a bit more flexibility in how I can run it and what I can do with it. And also the Patreon, guys, a lot of times we don't know exactly what we're doing and we just kind of try stuff out and see what happens. And the Patreon has kind of been a collection of that. And we're going to kind of pull it down, restructure it, and put up a fresh one in the fall with our fresh shows. And it's going to be an all-new Patreon, more sustainable Patreon with some all-new bonuses and all-new stuff in there. So you'll want to look forward to that as it comes out. And we'll be promoting it on our shows and on our channel and everything, keeping you guys up to date on it.
So current patrons, keep an eye on Patreon. Keep an eye out for posts, because we are going to post. At some point, we want to have kind of just like a round table with you guys, kind of a town hall, to see like what sort of things are you particularly interested in, and see if we can manage that. Because stuff like the postcards, I fell way behind in the postcards. All of our patrons know that. A few reasons for that. One being just like time; it's an easy thing to slip through the cracks. And two being having new art for each one. That becomes an expense. You know, we have to pay artists for doing it. Some of the stuff was like stuff made by people here in the channel, just out of the goodness of their heart to contribute. Thank you, Saber, and Dipper, for, you know, doing like postcard art on more than one occasion. But like, we don't want to ask people to do that. You know, we want to pay people for making art. So that's something that we're going to get away from a little bit. We will do. I'll send out one more round of minis to you guys. We'll talk about, I don't know, let us know, or let us know in the Patreon sort of community there if there's a particular characters you especially want minis for. We'll send it out to kind of make up for the last couple months of postcards. But other than that, we're going to be, all of that stuff that kind of takes a lot of hands-on, like individual stuff, like the games and postcards and stuff, is probably going to be drifting off. But we want to know, you know, what do you guys want? Do you want more behind the scenes content? Do you want more? We don't know. We don't know really what's or do you not really want anything and you just want to support the channel? You know, that's options too. So we'll kind of talk about that. So Patreon is one of the big changes. The other big change is the format of shows.
Yes.
So were you gonna say something else about Patreon, Sean?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, it's gonna be reformatted. We're gonna talk to you guys about the rewards that you guys want, but we're gonna pick something sustainable. Like, the thing about this is John and I have essentially been running the Patreon, and like, we both also have day jobs and also run the channel, and like, so we miss things sometimes, and we want to get it to the point where it's sustainable, and you know, it's not so much extra effort and time from us that it ends up slipping. So we want to do a better job for you guys is basically what we're looking at.
We always want to make sure that we can follow through on the commitments we made, and you know, even if it's something like sending out postcards, like, I feel like shit when I don't get those out on time. You know, so don't want to do that. Don't want to do that to you guys. Don't want to disappoint you guys. Don't want to disappoint ourselves. So yeah, that's kind of the idea with that. We talked a little bit about show formats going forward. They're going to be more contained stories. So the next two shows we're looking at launching, one with Sean, one with another DM that we're bringing in. They are going to be 10 episodes, and you know, with the intention of them being like fully contained stories. If you checked out PD&D, the podcast, the way we're doing that is there's like 3 episode arcs. That arc is a quote unquote season. That arc constitutes like one buddy cop movie. And then so we'll do another one. And, you know, we'll keep putting out more seasons of that as we find the funding for it, like anything else. It's going to be more contained stories, because that allows us to iterate, change things up, you know, see what's working, see what's not. It also lets us get more cast involved. You know, we've met so many cool people that we want to work with more regularly. So you'll see a couple
we
new
got
faces.
So many cool people.
You'll see a few new faces. You'll see a few returning faces. So
I'm gonna be in a show in the fall.
I was gonna say, yeah. And speaking of like Sean mentioning earlier about actually seeing Sean play, in the one that he's not DMing, he's actually gonna be a player. So you get to see Puck as a player for a full 10 episode arc.
That is the most I've played in any game since we've started this channel.
It's exciting. So yeah, going forward, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening. I know a lot of you guys who are watching right now are the people who have been with us either from the beginning or like from whatever point you jumped in, you've been with us hardcore.
Since the Dingo episode.
Yeah. Or since the Dingo episode for a lot of people, yeah. But like, honestly, that's the only reason we're able to continue making shows.
Yeah, because of you guys.
Yeah. And we can make more shows and better shows the more we grow the audience. So, you know, as always, the one big thing we can ask, more important than like, look, we love having funding to be able to do these things. Obviously that's essential, but if we get the audience bigger, we can get other people to fund it.
Yeah.
You know, the best thing you can do is tell a friend.
We need more eyes, guys. If you have a pair of eyes and you have a friend that has a pair of eyes and that friend tells 4 other friends who also have pairs of eyes,
Also, they just have ears.
that's like
Our
12
shows are very listenable too.
Absolutely, eyes and ears.
What eldritch horror! If you have eyes and you take their eyes, and then you get their eyes,
Look,
Why does
take
it always
all
have to
the
go there
eyes.
with you, Sky. God.
What I
Because
want
you
is a
can't-
1,000 eyes restrict level of viewing. That's a cheeky Yu-Gi-Oh joke for the folks in the audience.
Anyways, yeah. So that's what that is. We're the first
Aw.
D&D show you watched.
We're K-Gram's first D&D show. Guys, K-Grams hung out in my world building show, and I did name the mayors of one of the towns after K-Grams. K-Grams and Rusty have low-key named after NPCs in my town now.
At first, I thought it
So
was
watch
Kelsey.
my world building stream, guys. Come on.
I thought it was Kelsey Grammer at first. Like
Yes, Kelsey Grammer is a huge fan of our show. It's actually Kelsey Grammer's. We're the first live play D&D show Kelsey Grammer has ever watched. Thank you, Fraser.
Started watching for Redan. Look, hopefully someday we'll be able to get Redan back for a one-shot too. I know he's still got a busy life.
Yeah, he still sends us a message every now and then. He's doing well.
I would love to get Zavel back for a one-shot for the few of you who
me
know who
too.
Zavel is. But we'll see if that can happen.
Zavelle was great when we had them.
But yeah.
Well, it sounds like we're wrapping up.
Yep.
I want to leave on a closure note, and there's just one question that I had that didn't get answered. That if you want to, you're welcome to, but you could also say absolutely nothing. It's perfect. The last question I had on my list was, if you could do anything differently from the start to now, now's your chance. What would you change? What's a decision that you're like, ugh, at the end, a little gut wrenching? Was there anything? And that, of course, goes to our dungeon master. It could go as far as from the production perspective. It could go from a character perspective. It could go from a player perspective. Is there anything you would do differently from the start to now?
There are a great many things that I'd do differently from a production perspective. But I'm not going to go through and list them here. Maybe someday if I, do like a video series on producing this sort of stuff, if I ever feel like I have enough authority to be able to give useful information on that, maybe I'll do that. But what this was, as I said earlier, this is a learning process, This
This is our
kind of-
freshman thesis, and it got out of hand.
I would have said senior project, but
Okay, senior project.
Yeah. So, if you want to see what we're going to do differently, watch our next shows.
I would have saved so many good dungeons for later on when we were more popular. But
We definitely, I guess from a story standpoint, I think the biggest mistake we made is with the stakes got too big too fast.
absolutely.
We didn't know we were going to be doing it for 4 years. We didn't know we were going to be doing
not
the
a
same story for 400 episodes or whatever the hell it turned out to be. If so, we probably would have slow burned a lot of stuff. We wouldn't have saved the world in season 1. We didn't know that though. Again, it's another thing we didn't know going into it. We didn't know anything about what we were doing going into it. So.
Absolutely. Not a clue. So you find your way as long as you go.
I absolutely would have, if I had known it was going to be around this long, Norbog would not be a barbarian. Norbog would be a arcane trickster rogue. She would have been a half-caster immediately off the bat. Barbarian is incredibly limiting in an RP heavy game, especially when you're playing with these four, who are like heavily social charisma people, and like Barbarian just doesn't have good social stats. There's no social skills. You're just real good at hitting. So I would not make her a tank. She would be an arcane trickster off the bat, which I think would tweak her personality a little too.
God, we missed out on Arcane Trickster Norbog. God
Mixed
damn
out
it.
on Arcane Trickster Norbog. If you'd told me I was going to be here for 2 years, I would have been a rogue instead.
I didn't know. I didn't think you'd stay.
I guess that all points back to one of the mistakes we made over and over again, is trying to implement stuff too fast.
Yeah.
You know, in retrospect, we would have contacted Arcady like 2 months before we were ready to integrate the character in, so that all this stuff could be planned out. Instead of like, hey, could we throw you a show in like a week and a half?
Yeah.
Look, it was good.
I
love her. It is incredibly satisfying to do like 100 points of damage in one go, but in the long term, Barbarian is pretty limited from an RP standpoint. And I'm very grateful that Puck heard my frustrations about this before the start of this last season. And I was like, how can we make me not miserable by doing one thing real good? And he brewed up a feat for me that let me spellcast in limited capacity, which was great because giving me a movable object was an excellent idea.
The first thing I thought of was Norbog as an arcane trickster in another miniseries, like we were talking about before. That'd be fun.
This makes me think, too. This is unrelated to what was just said, but it made me think about it. When I came into this show, I was originally auditioning for the role when they were like feeling out like players. And one of the things that happened was they were like, what do you think you want to play? And I was like, I'm going to play a warlock. That's what I love. That's what I'm passionate about. They were like, I think Sean said, he didn't say it with any judgment. He was just like, oh, he's like, we got a lot of warlocks. It's like, we got like three people doing warlocks. And I was like, oh shit. And I thought about it and I was like, and there was a serious consideration for the evening. I was like, maybe I'll play sorcerer instead. Maybe I'll play a shadow sorcerer. That way I give them some variety. And I said, no, I want to play a warlock. So I'm going to play a warlock. So I say to you, if I can pass on one monochrome of like advice, play what you want to play. Don't play something because it's optimal. Don't play something because you don't have a healer. Play what you want to play and find a way to make it work, because there is always a way. Yeah, I'm going to die on that hill. Anyway, the only thing I would change, I probably would have told all these people at the table that I love them more, which I already did a ton.
Aww.
I'm just sappy like that. But like, I don't know. That's just the one.
Harder.
I know. I love you too, bud.
Honestly, your character rubbed off on Lilith a lot with the whole showing affection thing. Like, I didn't realize it until like later on. I'm like,
you got a little sweet. I got a little murdery. It was great.
Because Pen rolls up and it's just like
holding hands and hugging. I'm like, who is this?
Yes,
girl?
if we go somewhere and I'm scared, I'm like, hold my fucking hand so one of us doesn't get snatched down the hallway.
it's like I need a hug. I need somebody to hold me. I'm a sad little blonde boy and I need protection.
Sorry that my power fantasy is getting to hug my friend.
It's hold my hand until it's like, oh, dark spooky cave with sounds of chaos coming from it. I'm running in there alone.
Yeah,
because I'm not scared of that.
The chaos duo of Pen and Lilith was delightful.
I have to say,
I would love to do a Pen Lilith one shot. That's the one I'd like
we
to
will
do.
not survive.
This happened. Look, this happened. First, it was
timeline one shots with a
First it was Pen Gilbetta, and then they became the dynamic duo. Gilbetta's been paired up with a lot of people. It was Gilbetta Kishano, Gilbetta Lilith, Gilbetta Pen.
Chaos.
Deborah, would you do anything different?
Yes.
Yes, but I'm going to keep it confidential. What I will say.
Ow.
But what I do want to share is that you guys can all be angry at me, but I fucking loved the ending of season 3. Oh my god, the utter chaos of
What
season
happened?
3 was
What
so
happened?
Yeah,
much
I don't
fun.
remember what happened.
They
The
separated
mind
from the
flayer shit.
party. And
It
they
was
went,
mind player click chaos.
Hey, you know what? I
Be angry as
loved
much as you want. Playing was just so much fun.
it
for
was
me.
unexpected. It was out of left field, but I always count on this party to surprise me with things. At the end of the last episode, I expected Penn to say yes when his patron said, "Do you want to engage?" And I'll tell you right now what I had planned. The patron was gonna fucking necromancy the dead gods in the ethereal to come after Cyric. Specifically gods that Cyric has killed in the past.
It's super cool.
Using the sword. And I was like, he's gonna say yes. He always says yes. But he said no. And I was like, growth? Penn? Saying no to something he's asked for his entire life?
Did it
Delay?
really
He
count?
surprised you again at the end of this season with the sword.
Yeah. No, that
Yeah,
was
that
it. That
was-
was what I was talking about. But, I mean, with the other one, it was just fun because it was like, come at me, my brain is swole as hell. Come at me, my brain is ripped. And
Yeah,
Lilith
that's
losing her mind.
I will rewatch that episode over because it's just it always makes me laugh. Just the dice was just so bad, and I feel like those are the most humorous moments when the dice is just not working in your favor. Sometimes it's like I'm gonna die. This is it.
Well,
This is
you did
how I
become
end.
brain dead for a moment.
Yeah. It was rough. That was a rough one. And but I did enjoy it and I wouldn't have changed it. It was purely accidental, regardless of like the circumstances. But,
Yeah.
you know,
And then meeting Jarlaxle was a fun little like we knew this was going to be an issue, but let's just have fun rolling with it anyway.
I loved thirsting after Jarlax.
I gotta remember that voice. For
Yeah,
a
you
future
do.
character.
I pay you to run a
God.
D&D game where you just do that voice for 3 hours.
Let's watch the episode again.
I'm gonna be sappy too. I wouldn't do anything different. Honestly, I think, like I said when I first started this talk show tonight, that this group of humans is incredible. I feel so honored and blessed that you've taken me on without any following to play this game with you folks. And yeah, I think we've all learned a lot. I think improv is inherently a no regrets situation. You go into it with a yes attitude. Sometimes things happen that you don't expect, that you might have wished would have been differently, but at the same time, you said yes in the moment to whatever that feeling, emotion, decision was, just like life, right? And I know that's really sappy, but you really can't have regrets in life because you do what you need to do with what you have in that moment. And if you look back and you wonder, why did I do that? You have to have compassion for yourself and wonder, why did I do that? Why didn't I do it a different way? There are no shoulds. Should is a shameful word, as I tell my students. You could do things differently. Maybe you would do things differently with more information, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And with that, I think I will wrap it up. Thank you very much, everybody. I've had a fantastic time, and I can't wait to see you all in the fall in some way or another. Take care, everybody.
As you walk down that road of life, hitchhike, it's faster.
It's D&D. We all agreed to play some D&D. That means role playing, fighting and slaying, solving puzzles. Maybe it's just me. You guys won't? No, we won't. You guys just don't? No, we don't. Follow a single plotline through and through. I'm not complaining, but instead of gaming, you find the weirdest other things to do. There was adventure, but you guys wouldn't venture. Instead, you said the mountains looked real.